Today I just wanted to really share a little bit about my journey, starting with this question: what do you want to be when you grow up? For me, it was a question that I could never answer when I was younger. And as my friends were able to articulate that they wanted to be a builder or a teacher and a doctor, this made me exceedingly anxious. And wherever I searched, it sort of seemed like that answer eluded me. And as I got older, my ability to answer that question didn't come any more naturally. And that was annoying at first, but actually as I was edging toward adulthood, whatever that really means, finding the answer became a lot more urgent for me. Still didn't find it. I ended up at university with no greater clarity. This was a dangerous place for me to not really have any plans. It resulted in 4 years studying 3 degrees, 2 trips to the Vice-Chancellor's office, not for receiving awards or any good reason, I can tell you that, and 1 really big student loan, and a bit of growing up, just a little bit. And still after all of that, I never found what I was searching for, and quite abruptly I felt myself tripping off the edge of the education conveyor belt. And at that point, I had stalled enough. Everyone in my family agreed that I needed to figure it out. So I had to find an answer, whether really that was the right answer or not. So I became an accountant. Are there any accountants here? Just put your hand up, safe space. Yep. If you just want to just go like this for the next 30 seconds. No, nothing against accounting, but after 3 weeks in the job, I knew I didn't want to be an accountant. And I didn't pick that because I started at A and would work my way down. There was a little bit of thought behind it, but the fit was completely wrong. I realised that just because I could do a certain kind of work, it didn't mean the work was right for me to be doing. Seems obvious in hindsight, I know. So 3 weeks, didn't like it. It took me 6 months to muster up the courage to face that reality and to quit. I'd never really quit anything before that, so I couldn't help feeling like I was letting myself down and letting a few other people down. My parents never went to university, and I was the first of my siblings to graduate. And, I internalised a lot of that stuff, and they weren't really putting pressure on me, but it's certainly how I felt in that situation. But after quitting, I got to tell you, quitting feels real good. If you don't like something, you should quit it. I finally had all this space and all this time to actually contemplate my future. So understandably, for the first week, I did nothing and slept in. Thank you. I took care of myself. For the last 6 months I hadn't been. My well-being had taken a massive hit in lots of shapes and forms. But I didn't have unlimited time because I didn't have unlimited savings. So I really had to sort something out. But I also dreaded making the wrong decision again. So I was really committed to investing a lot of energy, a lot of consideration into these next few weeks as I pondered what my future would be. And really quickly, I realised the main problem was I'd been asked and had been asking the wrong question the whole time. Before I knew what I wanted to be, I kind of needed to know who I was. I needed to ask, really, really reflect and ask who I was and I guess how I wanted to contribute to the world, really. Just that old chestnut. So I began to ask myself these questions, and I understood how I'd never pondered this before. I realised that question and that contemplation had never been prioritised in the education system that I went through. The conveyor belt, it never really created space and time for that contemplation. And as my search continued, I found that the answers were there. I just had to start listening to them. I had to hear what my values were, my ideals, my morals, my ambition, and I think what that sort of all boiled down to was my purpose. And when I took that newly surfaced understanding of who I was and I overlaid it with all the career prospects that I was interested in, it turned out that I felt like technology would be a good fit for me. I really admired the fact that through technology, we could explore new realities, new possibilities, and we could build the future that we wanted to live in. And as a massive Harry Potter nerd, that just sounded to me like magic. So deciding that this was the path for me and not really wanting to go back to the education system that I kind of felt had let me down. Obviously, I had a big part to play, but I was looking for something new. So I enrolled in Inspiral Dev Academy, actually in their first cohort here in Wellington. Yeah. Awesome. I graduated and I landed what was really my dream job at a tech company, again here in Wellington, called Able Tech. And it was everything that I had been looking for. And it justified quitting, taking that risk. And I felt like it was my reward for getting off of the conveyor belt and actually walking purposefully through my life for the first time ever. And I was in my 20s. That's outrageous. And I also discovered that momentum's a really interesting thing, and I think it kind of exists all around us. I didn't realize when I was an accountant, but I'd been fighting the currents. And now I felt this flow behind me, and it felt really good. So when I was happiest and my most satisfied and satiated, not really seeking anything, of course this is when the idea for a business to come along and disrupt all this would pop into my head. And it was one conversation I had with my then 12-year-old brother, Geordie, that formed the idea for Banqer. Geordie was a pretty generic child of his time. It's a really nice way to talk about your brother, eh? You're pretty generic. He liked to talk about rugby and cricket and John Cena. Do you know John Cena? Yeah. I know someone in this room knows who John Cena is. So you could imagine my surprise when we were chilling at home, this 12-year-old kid, and he started asking me whether he should hire someone as a contractor or an employee. And then we started talking about progressive tax systems and investing in mortgages. It was really strange. And when I got to ask some questions, it turned out that his teacher, Micah, was actually teaching Geordie and all his peers about money. And my brother was so engaged. And at that moment, I felt so proud of him, a mere 12-year-old. And I actually knew that I felt that through this educational experience, his financial trajectory, his financial future, actually his entire future, looked completely different now. Through his comprehension and understanding of those concepts at this age, he wasn't ever going back from that. But I also felt a real twang of guilt. Although I only lasted 6 months, I was an accountant. And I'd never bothered to talk to him about money, and I think it was because I thought he wasn't capable or interested in talking about money, and he concretely proved me wrong that night. And I kind of thought, wouldn't it be amazing if all students, or all of us, I guess, had the opportunity to learn about money? And I mean really learn about money, to the point where we spent the couple of hours we got to see our sister once every 3 or so months talking about money. Maybe that's a bit intense, but scale that back a bit. It would be a pretty special experience. So I reached out to Micah, not knowing him, and we decided to team up. At first, just for a fun project to test my new software development skills, and we built Banqer. And that is, as Guy kind of touched on, it's a simulative financial education experience. So I know there's some banker teachers in the audience. Students get to experience banking through a pretend bank account. They get paid for coming to school, have to rent their school desks or whatever the teacher sets up. They start earning compound interest, taking out mortgages, term deposits, get a credit score. Everything that you and I are supposed to know as adults, they start learning it and simulating it in the classroom. We built that in a weekend with some friends, not the whole shebang, but it was just basic banking in the weekend. And on the Monday, Geordie and Micah were using it in their class, and that felt, it's hard to explain how special that felt. It was really cool. So with the friends that I developed this with and Micah, we kept on developing it over the months, and we added on more features like being able to buy cars and scooters, taking out insurance. And before long, I had to face the tough decision of whether Banqer was going to live and breathe and have a life of its own, and I was going to be the one to support and nurture that, or whether it was just going to be this side thing that we kept going for as long as we could. And I quit again. It was a bit harder this time, but still I quit. That was 6 years ago now. Since then, we have grown to support almost 200,000 students here in New Zealand and Australia through Banqer Primary and Banqer High and Pēkeka. And despite having only launched officially in New Zealand and Australia, we've been used in over 10 countries, and it's used from Northland to Rakiura, so that's pretty cool. I love getting into Banqer classrooms. And Banqer really exists to ensure the next generation is empowered for their financial future. So it goes right back to that conversation I had with Geordie, which is why I'm really proud that on average, Banqer student improves their financial literacy rate by 30%, which it may sound insignificant, but if at a population level, if we saw that improvement, we'd add billions to the economy and create thousands of jobs. So maybe that'll happen, who knows, we'll see. Yeah, oh thanks, yep. And I've got an amazing team that works alongside me at Banqer. We're still pretty small, there's 9 of us. There's a Banqer team member in the audience. Yeah, hey, wow, hey Gemma. Yeah, so it's not just my journey. This has always been something bigger than me. It really, as you heard, it started with Micah, and I've just carried it through a little bit further, and now a lot of people are helping me carry it forward. And behind the highlight reel, like I've given you the good stuff, there's a bunch of challenges on the daily. Like didn't pay myself for months. Growing a team has its pain points as well. Contracts fall through, getting misled from people whose morals don't align with me, all that good stuff. The daily stress remains, but I think the key is I feel like I can weather it because Banqer was built on foundations of purpose, and that started with me finding my own purpose. Oh man, I haven't been pressing these. This is what it started looking like, then it looked like this. We're also a certified B Corp, I missed that part. Okay, cool. I also know why now I couldn't articulate what I wanted to be when I grew up because it didn't exist, co-founder and CEO of Banqer. I had to go on a journey to create my answer, and that journey has been more rewarding than being able to answer that question. So if you don't know the answer yet, I just want to let you know that that's okay. Don't be anxious like I was. No, settle in. You might just be in the start of your journey. The answer that you're seeking might be waiting out there patiently. It might just need you to start quitting things, or maybe move cities, or find the right co-founder, or maybe it needs you to retrain in a new industry. I don't know. I don't know what your journey is going to look like, but I do believe it is waiting out there, and I just want to say that it just takes a little bit of bravery to take those first steps. Getting to the starting line was, I think, the hardest part of my entire journey. So, whatever yours looks like, I wish you well on it. Thank you.